What's up, cinephiles? My name is TJ, and welcome to Cinemateq. It's time for your weekly news wrap-up, so let's start talking about all of the film news that made us happy and angry and oh so sad from this past week. Starting off with Joker and its great debut at the Venice Film Festival. Joker premiered this past Saturday at the Venice Film Festival, and at its conclusion, it received an 8-minute long standing ovation. For those of you who remember some of our earlier content, we reported that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood received a 7-minute debut at Cannes earlier this year. That means that mathematically, Joker is about 9% better than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and you can take that straight to the bank. Now, with the premiere of Joker at Venice, we got a flurry of reviews coming out about the film, and that has led to some controversy. Some reviewers have asked the question, is Joker a dangerous film considering the moment in history that it's being released into? To best sum up what some of these critics are saying, James Hunt over at Screen Rant had the following synopsis. Joker is about a man who is rejected and deals with that in a very violent, aggressive way, and it has been suggested by various critics that the film could lead to people taking the wrong message from it, that it actually supports incel culture, and it could lead to acts of terrorism. That's not to say that Joker openly encourages such acts, but it could be interpreted that way by the wrong person. So now Joker is primed to be the flashpoint for a huge discussion about film in general as to whether a film's quality, because we've all been hearing that Joaquin Phoenix is excellent in this film and deserves an Oscar nomination for it, versus the moment in time it's released in and how that could potentially affect society at large. This conversation is going to persist as we get further and further into awards season. Joker has its premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 9th, and then it will be released worldwide on October 4th. It's also worth mentioning that a lot of these reactions have been coming from people who haven't actually seen the film yet. Obviously the critics have, but the people having the broader discussions about the film really haven't had the chance yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how the film's release either stokes the fire of this controversy or allows everyone to just say, oh, it's actually not that bad, let's all move on with our lives. We are going to continue to follow the controversy surrounding Joker as it gets further and further into its release, because these types of stories that have to do with film culture and also broad culture in general are important, especially considering the time in which the Joker is being released. And less importantly, I'm interested to see how controversy like this can affect a film's Oscar chances. Does Joaquin Phoenix lose his chance at an Oscar considering all of the controversy around the film? I'm interested to see how that plays out. Moving on, Kristen Stewart, in a recent interview, was quoted as saying that she might have a shot at a Marvel film if she would just stop holding her girlfriend's hand in public. This story makes me really angry. I hate the fact that we have to report on things like this, but it's also important that we have these discussions. Stewart recently gave an interview in Harper's Bazaar where she said, and I quote, "I've fully been told if you just do yourself a favor and don't go out holding your girlfriend's hand in public, you might get a Marvel movie." It's important to note here that no one is actually named. We don't know who said this to her. So we shouldn't go off and say, well, Kevin Feige is obviously a homophobe, or that Marvel hates the LGBTQ community. We can't say that for sure based off of this quote alone. However, it does point to systematic homophobia still being somewhat prevalent, if not very prevalent, in Hollywood, or at least old school Hollywood thinking. This notion that an LGBTQ actor can't carry a family-friendly franchise goes back decades and has been prevalent in Hollywood for ever. And this, as an example, just shows how one of the hottest young actors in all of Hollywood right now, Kristen Stewart, who tears it up in the indie scenes on the regular and is in like 1 billion films showing at all of the festivals this year, couldn't get a Marvel film because she's not brand friendly. It's ridiculous. Honestly, I hope this is the last time we ever have to report on a story like this, but sadly, I have a feeling that it's not the last time. And that sucks. And now we're going to move on to some shorter stories that still warrant your attention, but perhaps don't qualify for my long, verbose rants. And we're gonna start off first with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, kinda sorta maybe being confirmed to being turned into a miniseries by Quentin Tarantino. Brad Pitt, in a conversation with a New York Times reporter, said that yeah, that's probably gonna be happening. So, confirmed, I guess. Now, according to some reports, the initial assembly cut of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was about 4 hours and 20 minutes long, and the final finished version of the film was about 2 hours and 50 minutes, I want to say. So there's more that could be put back in there if you wanted to turn it into a miniseries. And this is not the first time Quentin Tarantino has done this if he actually ends up doing it. The Hateful Eight was turned into a miniseries and released on Netflix back in April, so there is precedence for Tarantino doing this. Richard Kelly, the director of such films as Donnie Darko and Southland Tales, is apparently writing and directing a film based on the life of Rod Serling. If you don't know, Rod Serling is the person who created and hosted the original Twilight Zone. Rod Serling, from what I understand, has had quite the life. And I think a biopic that centered on him, especially if it focused on the creation of the Twilight Zone, would be very interesting indeed to watch. Also important to note that this is the first film that Richard Kelly will be directing in like 10 years. So good for him for getting the project going, and hopefully we can tell you in the future that it's been confirmed, because this is something that I would definitely want to watch. In news that is specifically for me and maybe 10 other people, the director's cut of Midsommar is going to be released to Apple TV only. It's an Apple TV exclusive. What the hell is going on? Now, for those of you at home wondering, wait, does this mean I have to buy an Apple TV now? No. This is actually just what they're rebranding iTunes to. So if you are a person who buys movie and consumes content using iTunes, you will be one of the lucky people who will be able to purchase and own the director's cut of Midsommar. Details for the film's release on Blu-ray have already been issued, and the director's cut is not a part of it. So for the time being, iTunes/Apple TV is the only place where you're gonna be able to see the director's cut of Midsommar. Now, I wanted to highlight this because I can't think of another point in history when this has been true, where two different cuts of a film are released to different platforms. And if this is how things are going to be going in the future, does that mean that all 5 cuts of Blade Runner are going to be on 5 different streaming services? It's kind of crazy when you think about the implications of this in the future. But if you're not an Apple person, like myself, your best chance to see Midsommar, the director's cut, is still in theaters. It was only supposed to be released to theaters last weekend, but it looks like the film may be performing well, and at least here in Canada, its theatrical run has been extended into the middle of September, depending on where you are and what theater is your local theater. So if you can, go check it out, because your options for watching in the future are going to be extremely limited. And finally, in a bit of sad theater news, the Paris in New York is gone. It's dead. The doors have been locked. No one will be able to see films there ever again. If you're wondering why this is a big deal, the Paris was the last theater in all of the United States that was both single screen and showed first run features. So now first run is entirely multiplexes. You can't see first run features anywhere else. And honestly, I was surprised to hear this. I thought that there would be a few more single screen theaters in the United States that were showing first run features, but apparently that's not the case. And really and truly, the old way of watching films, going to the movie palaces that was so popular in the 10s and 20s, the 1910s and 20s for the younger audience, is gone. And it just makes me kind of sad. I'm also kind of sad because I had the opportunity to go to the Paris earlier this year in January and said to myself, you know what? I'll go to it next time I'm in New York. And now I can't because I'm a big old idiot. And that does it for all of the short little stories that I wanted to share with you. I'm thinking about calling this section Jump Cuts. I don't know though, maybe you should tell me below what I should name this section, and if you like this new format that we're playing with. Shorter videos, no talking about the trailers, just straight news all the way through. And if you do like this new format, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this stuff. We also love it when you get in the comments, tell us what you think about all of the stories that we talked about today. And I think it would be really cool if you were to tell us in the comments below what your favorite single screen theater still is. Obviously, if you're watching in America, none of them are first run theaters anymore. But if there's an art house cinema near you that you'd like to shout out, let us know in the comments. For me, it's the Royal. I love it so much, but it's in a part of the city that I don't get to that often, so I have to go to other places that are still great. Shout out to the Fox Theater, still a great place to see movies. So maybe that's where we should just end this video right now. Go support your single screen theaters because they need you and they help keep film culture alive and vibrant. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.